Welcome to the Sales Hive Mind, where I've gone out and found the best salespeople from across the domain. And quite frankly, I'm going to be pulling all of their best tips and tactics out to share them with you. This week, for the first episode, I have Tony Campbell from Outseer. Anthony was actually someone that I've known a little bit from my past. We worked together at a company that I will not name. And the reason that I wanted to invite him to become the first guest is that at the time, the product wasn't what I would consider the most sexy, but Anthony hit target and exceeded target time and time again. So I wanted to pull him in and find out what makes him tick. Anthony, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for asking, James. It's a pleasure to be your first interviewee, as part of your series. So no, and thank you for the kind words.
Well, no pressure, Anthony. With that intro, you better have
I
some juicy
know,
stuff for us.
but yeah, no pressure indeed.
Cool. So I suppose before we get kind of into the really meaty stuff, could you just give us a quick introduction? How did you get into sales? And could you tell us perhaps what your biggest deal is, just to give us a kind of a feel of your area of specialty?
Yeah, no problem, James. I guess how did I end up in sales? That's a really good question. Going from doing a computer art degree and absolutely hating that, moving down to London and realizing that from a few jobs I had over university, realizing that I was pretty good at building relationships, selling, albeit not enterprise sales at university, of course. But moved down to London. I joined a company called Direct Debit Limited. I started in telesales. I did that for 6 months and did very well at that in that time. And then before I knew it, I was straight in the field in enterprise sales. And within my first year, I was the number one new business or sales guy up against guys 10, 15, 20 years older than I. And I guess 22 years later, with a lot less hair, of course. I had a full head of
Me
hair
too.
back then. It happens, mate. It happens. That was the beginning. And it was a natural home for me. I've done a handful of psychometric tests over the years. And I'm happy to say that it came out as, I'm an unadulterated new business hunter. I'm guilty as charged.
Great. And what's the biggest deal that you've ever done? Give us some
Biggest
numbers.
deal? It depends in whether you're looking at it in TCV, ACV, ARR. I would say the biggest is a few million in terms of ARR, and TCV. I guess ARR is what we're all talking about nowadays, James, right? So that's probably the figure that you're most interested in. So yeah, I'd say a few million.
Cool. So, right, I'm going to start pulling the good stuff out of you now, Anthony. I think I consider there are two main parts of sales. It's getting pipeline and closing deals. So let's start with pipeline. I mean, there's lots of ways that you can do it, lots of ways to skin a cat, but what are your secrets? What do you think is a really good, effective way to build pipeline in 2026?
Well, yeah, the world's changed a bit since COVID, hasn't it? Look, for me, it's just so important to first and foremost understand the kind of ideal customer profile within the organization. So, of course, I've recently joined Outseer, so I've had the opportunity to do that, understand where the big wins are, where the new products and innovations fit, and then what organizations have a problem I can solve, and have budgets to solve that problem. Would do business with Outseer. We have a solution that meets their needs, and then, of course, sitting down, mapping out all of those prospects, and then educating myself on each of their, depending whether it's a tier 1, a tier 2, or even a tier 3, if it's understanding the problems that they have, any kind of industry movements that are going on that we can solve that problem. And for me, I mean, I don't believe in cold calling, and I'll explain that in a bit more. I believe in warm calling. So I think you'll agree, James, there's nothing worse than getting a call out the blue from someone that hasn't done their homework. And for me, again, once you've done that you've put the foundations in place, I think the warm call should be followed, should come after a damn good email where you've positioned that you understand their business, what you're seeing at peers of theirs at similar financial institutions or organizations, and then proving why they should speak to you, why they should give you 5 minutes. And then when you do call, or you send another email, or you get a response, or you get a bite to that, is just proving yourself beforehand. That's what I've done for the last, as I said already, 22 years, and it's worked well. And I just think that's how I begin.
I'd love to dig into that because you know what, another gifted salesperson, there's a great prospector, said something similar. You know, it's all about creating that wow outreach. But obviously, when you do research and you personalize, there's a tremendous overhead involved in doing that. And I suppose at kind of one end of the spectrum, you've got, you know, if you've got a million accounts in your TAM, you can just fire a spam cannon. If you're, you know, working named accounts, you need to be more like a sniper. So, you know, when you're doing your research, are you doing account level research, individual kind of, are you customizing it at a person by person level or at an account by account level, or are you opening up with some kind of deep domain research, right? Talk to me about your, like, how you create that kind of wow moment.
I mean, great. I'm not a spammer. I'd like to think I'm not a spammer. Maybe some senior people at certain banks, financials might disagree, and I hope they would agree. No, I like to make those emails as specific and personalized as possible. I think, and I know we've spoken about this before offline, but there's nothing worse than getting some nonsense email where someone's not properly done their homework and you're just thinking delete. And I guess the goal here is to make sure that they take that minute or two, the first few lines of your email, if they need to get that interest immediately, otherwise it will go in the bin. Sorry, if you could repeat that.
What kind of, are you personalizing at a kind of an individual level, at an account level, or at a kind of a domain insight level?
It depends. So I think it depends on whether I have that intel on that individual, or I know someone that they're linked into, or if I've met a peer of theirs at a different bank and I know they're connected, then I would absolutely be remiss not to use that, you know, X, Y, and Z at X, Y, and Z bank, and that you understand they had problem, and perhaps they might have a similar problem at their organization. And look, that works because, one, you've got the credibility that that person who has a trusted advisor or a peer at another organization, you're already kind of qualifying yourself in as someone that they should be speaking to, that you are. You're not just like all the other salespeople that are sending these spam emails, as you already mentioned, and not thinking about their audience. They're just thinking about, as you say, getting 100 emails out to someone that's at any bank, blah, 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 and not thinking about the person, their competitors, their territory. Because let's be honest, every bank has responsibilities, but depending on where they are in the world and what pressures there are going on there, or any regulatory pressures, that it's going to be different for each one. But yeah, and then again, for me, I like to think about quality, not quantity. Don't get me wrong, quality and quantity is a beautiful thing, but I'm not sure that exists.
I think they're mutually exclusive, aren't they? I don't think you can do both.
So just proactively, I guess, a group of, even if it's 20, and just focusing on them religiously, trying to create value in your email, and get that opportunity to sit down with them. And let's be honest, the wider team, we are but just the front of house, and we want to tee things up so that we can get the really clever guys or gals when it comes to solution consultants.
Matchmaking with subject matter experts.
Absolutely, and we've got to, once we get to that point and we've created that stage for them to do what they do, then it's back to us to take things through to a conclusion. So yeah, I see my job very much as, we've probably talked about this before, James, but I love food, and I like to think that we are the front of house in new business sales or major account management or a bleed of the two, and our job is just to set the stage for those deeper discussions, so that if there is a solution that meets the needs, and the solution consultant has basically proven that we do technically have a solution that meets the client's needs, back to us to make sure that we have a solution that meets into the budget of that organization and that they want to do business with us. And we've done, I guess, the appropriate discovery, because there's nothing, you and I both know that if you don't do that sort of scoping or discovery phase properly, and you sort of move to the next stage, that you're potentially leaving something on the table, whether that's the pains or the who's going to benefit from this, who's going to lose from this decision, etc. So just making sure that you cover those bases, and you give the opportunity, the best opportunity for the business to see value from that.
Yeah, you made a great point there, which is around the role of orchestrating. And I always thought that actually when people graduate, if you like, from SME sales to enterprise, that's one of the biggest things people struggle to wrap their head around. Like, you're not expected to lead and control and deliver every single meeting. A lot of the time, as you say, you open the door, you set the scene, you're kind of the ringmaster, but actually you're facilitating, either putting subject matter experts with their opposing numbers, or your founder sitting opposite the decision maker. It's not all about you.
Absolutely not. I mean, I've always been a team player. I mean, even back in the day when I was a midfielder playing football through school, and nothing at a very high level, but I was always that guy that was in the middle of the park, winning the ball and giving it to the guys that were more talented than I was at football. And I loved that. And I'd always give 100%. I'd run for every ball. I'd tackle for every tackle. Some of my friends might say a little bit too aggressively, but that's life. But yeah, and in the same in sales. My job is to be that someone that understands the market, that can speak to the right people, gain their trust, that we have something that may be of interest to them to solve a problem within their organization, and teeing up a member of the team to do their job.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's some great insights and on pipeline. One thing before we move on, I did want to ask. So you said about warm calling, which kind of infers that you are still picking up the phone. Is that right? Is that still kind of a part of your outreach? You're calling people that aren't expecting your call?
For sure. I mean, I just like when I say that, I guess warm as in I've sent an email. They hopefully know who I am, or they at least have seen my name at the top of the email.
But at that moment, they're not expecting your call. You're still prepared to make that leap.
I'm prepared to do that for the right prospects. But I mean, generally, I'll be honest. In the world that I work in, bear in mind, I'm dealing with risk and compliance, cybersecurity, fraud and financial crime. These guys don't want to talk to people anyway. They want to get on with their jobs and stop fraudsters. So it's really just trying to. I just think the warmer you can make it, and build that credibility, so that when you do either warm call or cold call before you've organized the call, that they're more likely to give you the time to say what you need to say. I do think that cold calling chief risk officers, global heads of frauds, chief compliance officers, I don't think that's personally. Just from my perspective, I don't think that's a great idea. Unless there's a compelling reason, or you've given them a reason to trust you, or to give you that 5 minutes, because I don't think they will, unless they've had a great email, they've seen your shop window on LinkedIn, and they thought, blah 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 works with Tony at X, Y, and Z organization. So I do think you have to be careful, because it's
a really fine line, and I think there's some nuance that I'd like to explore, which is, I think a lot of salespeople have got to the point where they now hide behind messages and sequences. They're afraid to pick up the phone. They're afraid to take that rejection. And and on the other hand, you're right. I don't think just picking up the phone and calling into someone cold is going to be effective because they're going to be too startled, too unprepared, and too unwilling. So I think it really does require those two things. Is still the hybrid approach and using that outreach, that well, not cold outreach, warm outreach as you describe it, is almost just taking them the last mile.
And we were having a conversation offline before, and I'll be honest with you, James. There's in I've just come back from, I would say that I met with an existing client, but also a new business client, and there's other banks within those territories whereby there's people at other banks that I think, do you know what, I would cold call them because I've got something interesting to say, and I've got intel within that market space that would probably give me 5 minutes of their time. But I'll need
Yeah,
to test that
and
and
that's
get
the
back to you.
key. Like you've got to have something to say that is worth hearing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a 5 second call, and certainly nobody in new business sales likes a 5 minute call. We want at least 5 minutes, not 5 seconds.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, we talk a lot, or we have talked in the past about kind of conventional sales wisdom. So, is there any piece of sales advice that you hear people give out that you just vehemently disagree with, that you just kind of sit there thinking, no, that's terrible advice?
I mean, I think sometimes, like it's in some organizations, we're always working quarter to quarter, and there's pressure to close deals. And look, I've always, and I think my previous leaders or managers would be advocates of this, or they would certainly go, yeah, Tony's telling the truth there. I think sometimes you can be kind of pushed into, or that keep going on and being kind of, I don't like to be a pest to my prospects or clients. I like to email at the right time, in the same way that we're in a meeting, you say the right thing at the right time, or if you have the opportunity to be with clients and you're over dinner, then you might think about the right thing to say at the right time. And I think bombarding prospects or clients trying to close deals is so, in other words, persistence wins. I think it's doing the right thing at the right time wins. If it's not going to close in that quarter, take it on the chin, speak to your leadership, tell them that, look, this was forecasted here. It's not going to close. It's going to bleed for another 4 weeks, but I'm going to make it up in the next quarter or the quarter after that, and it's all going to be good. But be honest
Yeah.
and straightforward on that, and don't put yourself into a position where you're trying to push it in where it's not supposed to be. And if you do that, you're going to lose the credibility in that relationship, that quality relationship that you've built up with with the business team there, your champion or your economic buyer, and you're breaking down all that great work that you've built up for the sake of 3 or 4 weeks. And I've always been an advocate that if it's not going to happen, I'm gonna make that known immediately, and not try and hide behind the fact that it's it's the 30th today, isn't it? It's well, for me, it's the end of our financial year, so I think does that answer your question, James?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and I well, you probably know from my content that I passionately agree with everything that you've just said. And for me, it's the difference between persistence and impatience. Like persistence, you can keep on going, and you push through difficult things, but it doesn't mean it has to be today. Like you're trying to force something to happen on a timeline that is kind of just not compatible with the buying governance that they've got to go through, and all of those things. As you said, it erodes the credibility that you spend months creating, and then other things like last minute discounting. You give away 40% when you could actually, just by waiting another 2-3 weeks, you could achieve the full value. And I never, not only did I not understand that, I simply never accepted it. And I am organizationally incompatible with businesses that act like that.
No, I'm with you, aligned on that.
Yeah, great. So technology is obviously one of the areas that is changing. There's, you can't look in any direction without seeing AI. But is there any kind of piece of sales tech that you personally couldn't live without, whether it's kind of, tried and trusted or something a little bit new and snazzy that you've kind of found and want to share?
Um, I don't think there's anything that, I mean, I don't. I think without doing my job, without LinkedIn or LinkedIn Navigator, Sales Navigator, would be that would be a massive hole in my kind of workflow. Um, there are lots of new things like Gong and things like that record meeting notes and all that, and I've never had that before. I came to Outseer, and whilst so yeah, I would say Sales Navigator is probably the greatest tool, and the insights you get now, the AI insights that you get, where it tells you more about potentially whether that's got that particular account has a higher sort of profile in terms of spend, or whether they're moderate, or and then some intel that's aligned to the products you have, and that's cool. I've still to validate how accurate it is. Let's see. I mean, but I think it is a cool addition to the LinkedIn tool. One thing I kind of found with things like Gong and stuff and recording, and I always prided myself on taking brilliant notes in meetings, and I enjoy uh, using that or proving myself to the audience that I've met that I listened well, I took great notes, I understood what they said, and using that as a kind of a tool to validate that we agree on next steps, that this is what we discussed. And I found it when I joined Outseer. It's cool to have this technology, but I also found that was if people know that you're using AI to listen to calls and take notes, I feel in my heart of hearts, and maybe it's just because I just love basically proving myself to the client, it kind of takes away a little bit. Of course, on the other side of the coin, it can save me time. So you can have Gong listening to the calls and giving you a kind of first base email, which you often spend a lot of time editing and refining or enriching with where you thought the real like money information is. But yeah, I wouldn't use that 100%. And being completely honest, when you're talking to senior executives at tier one and tier two banks, frankly, they don't want it to be recorded. They want it to be written down, and they're going to be less likely to share their key objectives or any pain points if they know that there's a Gong recorder there. So you need to be careful with this technology
Yeah, that's
because, yeah.
it's a really interesting point. I mean, I use something called Fathom, which is for note taking, and I found that it catches things that I would have missed in my notes, but it will miss things that I catch, and that's less about what's said, and sometimes the sideways glance or the non-verbal cue, or so you certainly, I don't think, can outsource everything to AI, because I mean, I can't remember what the statistic is. I'm sure it's been thrown around. 80% of communication is non-verbal. It's some statistic like that. And I think that's what's a really great salesperson does, is they're reading the room, like these very, very subtle signals. And the second thing you said, which is you're right, how the prospect feels about giving information. And I certainly still think that I think there's a role for having the AI recorder in a room full of people, but there's also, you're never going to replace those back corridor one-to-ones, which is where the real golden insights get.
And we were talking about that before we started. I mean, the best conversations are potentially in the corridor, or over dinner, or over a drink or a coffee, where there aren't recorders, and you're trusted with important information, and you need to be trustworthy, and you need to know where to use that information and what not to put in emails, and what to keep in your head. And I think, that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, look, one more question to close us off. Like, I always say to my clients that what you're spending your money on with my time is my scar tissue. Like it's the losses that teach us, and the most painful losses often teach us the most. Can you tell us about one painful experience that you had from your sales career, and what learning you took from it?
Yeah, I would probably say there's two ways I could answer this. I think one thing that I thought of immediately when you sent me the provisional sort of questions was, for me, I guess the biggest pains I've had is jumping into roles where I'm not, my skills are a fit for the business, but where they are in their journey is not a fit for my expertise. And I've found where I've in the past, and I've learned from this, where I've joined businesses, and it's just I've made a mistake. But then on the other side of the coin, I learned from those mistakes, and then I made sure when I was going through processes that I did everything I could to properly qualify if that business is somewhere where I could be not just successful but extremely successful, and I'm aligned to the moral compass of the exec leadership, as well as my peers within the business. And that was one important thing. I guess more on a sort of deal perspective, I think the biggest pain is just being in a process, or trying to create a process within a tier one bank, and without a doubt having a champion, but the size of the bank being so monstrous that trying to take that sort of initial idea and scoping that idea out, knowing where the pain is, and trying to navigate around a massive bank and try and bring that to fruition. And I think, would I have not done that within that? No, I wouldn't, because I built amazing relationships with people within that bank. But perhaps, would I have qualified out earlier? Yeah, I would have. And I'd say that I wouldn't say it was painful. I would just say it was. I think I was realistic about it in my mind, but I always thought that it would still come. But yeah, I underestimated the length of time it can take to take that idea to fruition in a massive tier one bank.
Yeah, and I mean, not to pick up on that, it is huge. It's like playing chess, but with a version where there's like 500 pieces on the board. Cerebrally, incredibly overwhelming. And you need to have, I think, both the skills and the temperament, and also, really importantly, the support of the business. You can't, if you've got a business that's conditioned to want to try and close things on a 3-month cycle, and you're dealing with global tier one bank, you need the organization to be behind you and not making your life harder. You need people in your company on the same team as you, not pushing the other way.
You're absolutely right. No, I'm totally aligned.
Yeah. Anthony, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, James. And no, thank you for inviting, and have a great day.